Welcome to Doobies with Doug. Sunday morning services edition. Oh boy. I'm not yet made it into town to get a fresh batch of flour. So I'm smoking the last of my hash roaches. Which is exciting. I'm getting ready. There it is. Getting ready to go bid a job. And hopefully everything will go well on the job. Pretty sure I got it dialed in. I found a place that was giving free estimates on painting houses, and sent them a bunch of photos of the house and got a quote, and sent that to the guy that owns the house. Told him I didn't really want to do it, but here's another company. So he offered me $250 over what their estimate was to do it, which wasn't my intention. My intention was to not do the job because I kind of don't want to, but scrape it, caulk it, paint it. It's a week's worth of work. And if I hire this kid in town to help me, I still stand to make 1,200 off the job. If it takes 5 days, then I'll make 1,200. But I got to pay this kid by the day, so it's $100 a day. Every day it takes longer off of my wages. But I'm pretty sure we can do it in 4 or 5 days and have it done. And I told kid, if we get it done in 3 or 4, there's a bonus in it for him. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to look over this job with a fine-tooth comb and then sign the paperwork on the contract. Make the bid official and all of that. I have a feeling that there's going to be repairs on the house that he's going to want done as it's getting painted, and that's going to cost him extra because painters and carpenters are 2 different fucking pay rates for shizzle. And I cannot begin to express how thoroughly tired I am of fixing somebody else's bullshit fuck ups. Which is what I'm sure this house is covered with. But I've worked with this guy. He owns 4 or 5 houses around. And I built a couple decks for him. I put in flooring for him. Painted interior of his rental house twice. Same house. So I got a good work record with the guy, and he pays on time, and like with the deck deal, that was a $1,500 deal, and he ended up giving me $2,000 because I ran into issues I shouldn't have had to run into. There were shortcomings on his part. He was unaware that his house was built on top of construction fill, and that 18 inches below the soil was nothing but big chunks of concrete. So it was extremely difficult to set poles in the ground. And halfway, well, not even halfway, at the very beginning of the deck project, we had to readjust to floating pads and different equipment and different materials and so on and so forth. So it was a drag. But he compensated me for it. And yeah, I mean, they're on time and they don't bounce, so the checks are good. I might as well work for the guy. Uh, Working for other people isn't working for me, metaphorically and literally. Uh, there's just days when, fuck it, I'm not doing anything. That's just how it works. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing shit. If the place was on fire, I'd probably burn up. So that doesn't work when you're working for a corporation or a company or someplace that wants you to punch a specific clock and do specific duties. But bidding these jobs like this, I can just be like, yeah, I'll do that for this. And they say, yeah, and then I sweat it out while I'm doing it, and figure out whether I made good hours at the end. But because of my Michigan work ethic and the slower pace of life here in Oregon, so far when I bid a job, I estimate labor according to what the locals would estimate labor at. So I'm trying to think of a good example that I've done. Oh, this fellow over here on the other side of the highway, he has 20 or 30, I don't remember how many, quite a few of these boxes in the ground that are 6 feet wide and 25 feet long, and they're full of soil. And he grows lettuce and cabbage and tomatoes and artichokes and what have you in it. Well, he wanted them all stripped of weeds, plant matter, anything that was in there. And then lattice, not so much lattice as poles put in all the way around so that he could attach uh, netting to keep the birds and the fucking critters out. Mostly birds. So I went over there and looked at it and estimated the hours, and I figured it would take about 2 hours apiece to do these things. Well, I hired somebody to help me, and it just happened to me and this kid worked well together, and we built a system, come up with a system really fast for doing it. Where I'd be stripping weeds while he'd be going through mounting the poles, and then we'd come in and finish it together. String the nettings and tie everything down. And we ended up being able to do 4 of these in an hour. So I got a bonus, kid got a bonus. Dude only had us in his yard for a couple of days and back to his peace and solitude. And that's just a huge bonus for me, that I'm able to do shit faster than your average Oregon worker and still get it done right. So just bidding things the way they bid things here has helped me a lot. Now, on that deck that I built, I had, oh God, 60 or 65 uh, 2x12s, 8-footers. Most of them were 8 foot, some of them were 6-footers. But all I needed to go buy was gravel, stanchions, concrete, and post because I had all the lumber already. And the lumber that I had, I cleaned it myself. It was repurposed lumber. It was a relatively new deck that was covered. It was only like 6 or 7 years old, this deck, and it had been covered the whole time. And it was on the non-weather side of the house. So the wood that came out of that deck was perfectly fine and perfectly clean and already painted. So I just had to nail it all together and repaint it. One coat of paint, you know. I already had that nice base layer on there, so I'm not covering up raw wood that's soaking it up or whatever. And when I look around at other dudes that are doing the same kind of work that I'm doing, they don't seem to understand that level of hustling to be able to repurpose. I mean, lumber's expensive. And for me to sit in my buddy's yard for a couple hours a day for a week and pull nails and cut out bad spots and sort that lumber out from that deck made me another $700-800 in my pocket because I didn't have to go buy lumber for this deck. And that's just kind of a untapped resource here. People don't do that. So that helps me stay ahead of the game a little bit. The different jobs I work, I always grab any scraps of copper or brass or #1 aluminum or any of the shit that I see. If I got a place to stick it, I grab it and stash it, you know? And I'll even pick it out of dumpsters if I see it. Construction dumpsters, not people's food dumpsters and shit. But there's no real scrap yards near here. You almost have to go to California to find a decent scrap yard. So I got a nice little pile of it together. Ran into a guy downtown that's like, yeah, man, this is all I do is drive around Oregon getting scrap and I take it to California and sell it. So I'd haul my box of shit out. I'm like, what do you give me for this? He's like, $20. Sold American. It's probably $35-40 worth of scrap, but he's going to burn the fuel and the time and the energy to drag it down there. It's just in my way. But there's a mentality to doing this kind of shit. And people that want to charge you extra call it emergent design. But we just called it figuring out how to get the job done before you fucking freeze to death because this is Michigan. Just grew up working in that mentality. We gotta hurry up and finish this shit because we're gonna need more firewood. Winter is coming. You know? So, not wasting shit, seeing opportunities where other people see trash. And as weak as I am, and as old and as tired as I've gotten in the last 15 years, 17 years while I fought with this fucking cancer bullshit, when I turn my switch on, I still outmove most people. I still outwork, outlift, outgrunt, outsweat, rock and roll. So that helps. And pretty good at pretending I like people. Just, it helps if you pretend to like people, but it also helps if you pretend to like them so much that you'll go the extra mile. You know, uh, this lady down here is sweet, just typical grandma, right? Well, maybe not typical. She's kind of a old hippie, but she wants some flower boxes replaced on her house. And I sat, because I know the vibe of her house and her thing, and I sat with a fucking piece of cast iron fancy gratework and burned the pattern into it with a torch on a 2x6. And I made 4 of them, and those were the front plates of her flower boxes, right? You'd thought I invented sliced bread. She just thought that was the most beautiful shit you've ever seen. And I've actually had 3 or 4 of her neighbors ask me to make more, but I won't. Because she paid me really well for those flower boxes. And part of the reason she paid me really well for those flower boxes is there's no other ones around like it. They are unique. And I picked up on that right away that she digs unique shit. So when she has some little artsy fartsy project, or a project that can have artsy fartsy thrown into it, she blows up my phone. And she likes that am, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artsy fartsy type. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit and hand paint anything, any flowers. I'm not going to do any good drawings. But I'm, what's the word? Crafty? Maybe not. But I can come up with weird shit that people ain't thought of before, or much, or that I just haven't seen. Or I think part of it is I see cool shit other places, and then I notice I don't see it around here. Cause like that cast iron burning thing, I knew a guy that used cast iron sculptures, or these different like trivets and weird shit made of cast iron to do branding on wood with it. The opposite of what I did. He would heat it and then brand wood with it, and it was fucking awesome. And I used something similar to that. I made hot blocks, I call them, by tacking them together with solder of different leather punches, flowers and leaves, so that I could wood burn onto trim flower and leaf patterns. So it looks like there's flowers and leaves going all around the trim. And they cover it with clear coat and fucking nail it up, man. And people love the fucking shit out of it. That is so beautiful. What a nice touch. Blah, blah, blah. You sit around smoking joints and make a few thousand linear feet of it, no problem. A propane torch and some leather punches. So that's, you know, part of the reason I'm able to survive here is that I can just go do those kind of things and people take care of me. And people understand things like, um, I would rather have weed than money. I tell somebody on a job site that in Michigan, and they're going to look at me like I'm fucking stupid. Here, they're like, awesome. Because piles of weed are easier to get than piles of money here. And Doug likes piles of weed. But with all that said, and with my new bent on painting houses starting this spring, really trying to get out of it. I'm trying to get out of the physical manual labor altogether. I want the toughest thing that I do with my body to be make hash. Which, if you make hash the way I make hash, you know it's a good workout, but it doesn't abuse your body overly much. So hopefully I'll be doing more of that really soon. And surprisingly enough, with all the weed around here and the keef and the dabs and the shatter and the fucking honeycomb and the fucking edibles and 90 million different ways, you rarely see hashish. And if you do, it's not very good. So I'm thinking making bubble hash for people should be a good idea. Because everywhere I've been where there's pot smokers, when you break out good full melt bubble hash, you change people's minds about the whole scenario. And there's some people here that know what I'm talking about. I've probably taught 3 or 4 dozen people how to make bubble hash. Out of that 3 or 4 dozen people, 2 of them got it. One of them is good at it. The other one has his days. So apparently it's not as easy to just do and get right as it feels like it is to me. Um, the person who taught me how to make it said my first batch was better than any batch they'd ever made themselves. So apparently it's just some kind of talent that I have. It doesn't seem that difficult to me, but I memorized the steps fairly well, fairly quickly, and got the hang of the mechanics in minutes. It's a pretty easy yoga, really, to adapt to. So making hash and trimming and that kind of, I'd much rather be doing that than slinging paint or banging nails. I've had talks with somebody about setting up a facility for the sole purpose of trimming. And just hiring good trimmers and training them to a standard and offering that as a service, processing service. But the legalities and the licensing of it is just so fucking exorbitantly expensive that it's a difficult thing to do. And it's not locked that people are going to use it, so it's just too shaky of a business deal for anyone to get interested in right now. And I'm still trying to work on this deal to set up a laboratory and hire some technicians and create our own industry standards for cannabis, for purity. I'm talking about borrowing the money to buy a spectrograph and running a complete spectrographic analysis on people's bud from numerous different random samples over periods of time and blah, 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 and establishing industry standards, realistic industry standards. Kind of like real dairy or real cheese or USDA organic is a bullshit designation, so I won't use that as a comparison. But same type of thinking, only with actual science involved. So that's another project I'm working on. But for now, I'm slinging paint. And I don't know if you can see that or not. So both hands are that way. That's bruising, and I don't know, it won't scrub off, whatever it is. And my hands hurt like fuck. And that's from digging in super hard soil and ripping off roofs. And just, whatever it is, probably tar, whatever the black element is in tar that's just soaked into my skin and won't come out. It's all over on the sides of my hands, everywhere. And a couple days ago, I was supposed to go work with this kid, and he's helped me out a couple times, so I felt bad for him. But he texted me in the morning. He said, "You gonna be able to help me today?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm gonna have to call in old. I can't fucking do it. Not today." Now, mind you, it was removing from the ground and carrying roughly 125 feet, 250 red paver stones, 9 by 24s, I think they were. And I knew that beforehand, so that might have been part of the reason I felt too old, was thinking about all them stones. And I ended up going and doing it within the next day, but there's a lot of stones. And you had to carry them quite a ways. I started off with 6 at a time. By the time the day was over, I was carrying 3 at a time. I think they weigh about 10 pounds a piece. So it was a good day. Picking stuff up and carrying it, it's kind of a farmer thing, so I can do it while I'm asleep. And it's Oregon, so I can light my joint, take a hit, carry 3 stones up to the front, light my joint on the way back, take another hit, carry 3 stones up to the front, light my joint. You know, if I leave the joint where the stones are, that encourages me to go back. And then I hit the joint and pick up 3 more stones and leave the joint there and go back to the truck. And then I'm like, oh, my joint's over there. And I wander back to the joint. And then, oh, yeah, stones. I pick up 3 more stones. And that's how Doug's brain works. It's like having a toddler loose in my head. I have to fucking trick it. I will not make coffee in my bare feet. Why? Because I know sooner or later I'm going to dump boiling water on the top of my feet. 195 degree, whatever it is, really hot fucking water on the top of my feet. If you've ever had 3rd-degree burns on the top of your feet, you will understand this. It only has to happen once. So instead of bullshitting myself into thinking that I am adult enough to not spill coffee on my feet, I won't let the toddler have any coffee until he puts his fucking shoes on. Yep. And that's how that works. It's important to know thyself. Is what I'm saying. And this one guy I work with, he's like, you wouldn't have those bad days off if you didn't pound so hard when you were working. Like where I'm from and the way I was raised and the people I was raised among, I don't have a work dial. I can't dial the speed that I'm working up and down. You get up in the morning, you eat breakfast, you flip the fucking switch, and you make money. And that was just my experience forever. Just go. The faster you go, the harder you go, the more money you make. And you're in a shark pool full of people busting their fucking asses trying to make your money. and that's the mentality of working in Michigan. You know, I see these guys doing construction around here. They're taking 3-4 months to do shit we do in 2 weeks. I watch these guys do a roof up here. I'm gonna guess, well, it's a double wide. It's one of those modular homes, a shingle roof on it. We all know what they look like. Not much pitch, straight square roof, 3 or 4 roof jacks for, toilets and showers and what have you, stove, and 2 skylights. Took them a week to tear it off, and another week to put it back on. I work for a crew roofing in Grand Rapids, and the first contract we were on was these roofs had been installed incorrectly in a development of brand new homes. So we had to go in and tear off brand new roofs and replace them correctly. All of them were those modular homes. We would do 4 a day. Tear it off, replace it. With the same size crew these guys had. We'd tear off a fucking roof in a couple hours. Half the crew moves over and starts tearing off the next one. As soon as you're a couple houses ahead, you come back and start banging rows. But you can really only have 2 guys banging rows at once. But there's a part of the job for everybody to be doing at all times, and you better be fucking moving. If we get backed in a corner, man, there's a shitload of shingles that didn't hit the dumpster. We get down to just doing ridge caps, and there's no room for you up there and whatever. We want to be able to jump in the trucks and go to the fucking bar the minute this is over. It takes a lot of alcohol to kill the pain. And they don't work like that out here. At all. Well, there's one crew that does. And they're mostly brown people. Not that I've been one to racially stereotype, but I've worked with a lot of Mexicans in my life. And I've worked with a few lazy Mexicans. Very few. So, that says a lot. Yeah, they did a roof up here, way steeper than double wide pitch. And they had that fucker tore off in 1 day and put back on the next day. 2 days they were out. I'm like, y'all should be embarrassed. For real. So that's helpful. Because I can even be sick and weak and worn the fuck out and old and fucked up. My eyes don't work. And I don't think so good anymore. Shit like that. And still keep pace, outpace, double pace local workers. Oh shit. Here's a good one. Had a dude call me a couple weeks ago. And he says, I need to move a shitload of firewood. He says, I need it thrown in the trailer or in the dump truck. And that's it. You throw it, I'll go dump it. You throw it, I'll go dump it. He says, I'll give you $50 a truckload to throw it. So I go out there, and there's fucking 8 big piles of wood. And I'm like, so how many of them are you getting in a truckload? And he says, 1. He says, that's how it came out of the woods. We cut it and split it in the woods and threw it in the truck and brought it down here. And dumped it. So each one of them is a truckload. And I'm all, well, then we're going to have to rework our deal because I don't want to be doing this all week. He says, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to stack it in there instead of throwing it. He gave me 2 teenagers to help. But we stacked it in there. I threw it, they stacked it. And it took me an hour and a half-ish to teach them how to stack wood. But they were game. They were trying to learn. They just took some guidance. Teach them to fill in all the holes. It's hard not to get frustrated when you learn how to do something when you were 4 and you're teaching it to an 18-year-old. But I did it. And got them into the swing of stacking wood. And it didn't need to be perfect because it's in a dump truck anyway. It's just going to get dumped out on the fucking ground. But we got 3.5 piles into one load that way. And he said other than the truck burning more fuel than it did before, everything went fucking awesome. And I'm like, well, it may have burned more fuel per trip, but you're making less trips. So do the math, homie. And so we reworked our deal, and he just paid me out cash for doing the whole load. And it worked out pretty good, but he said he ain't never seen no one throw wood that fast in his fucking life. And he had 2 buck-strong 18-year-old boys stacking wood as fast as they can fucking go. And I'm jumping off the pile to help them stack and catch up so I can clear the space to throw more. But throwing wood is as natural and as anything I do. You know, when you wear glasses, you push your glasses up so many times you don't realize you're pushing your glasses up or touching. That's how natural throwing wood is. My mom would wake me up fucking 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever the fuck she got up, start making breakfast. Fucking send me out of the house in the fucking freezing cold to throw wood. And when you just crawled out of your nice warm covers and you gotta do something and you're pissed off, you start fucking throwing wood, the wood goes away really quick. You're just fucking doing a monkey movement and creating heat. That's Kung Fu. Kung Fu is when you've learned the mechanics of something so well that the mechanics themselves disappear. And that's the goal of any craftsman, no matter what their craft. If their craft is laying concrete or throwing wood or playing the guitar or whatever, you want to learn the mechanics so well that they disappear. To somebody who's never even tried to dance, ballet doesn't look that hard. Hey, we're creeping up 40 minutes. This has been Sunday Services with Doug. Happy Doobie Day.